Hello and welcome to episode number 59 of the Hafey Digital Podcast, a show for creators, makers, and doers, where my goal is to help you make to the max. My name is Ryan Hafey, and in this episode, we're going to go back to the basics of podcasting while, I guess you would call it, live streaming on Clubhouse. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show. This is going to be an interesting one today. Mentioned it before getting into the intro, but been having some really interesting internet issues today, despite a couple of system restarts and restarting my router on two different occasions. My upload speeds, for whatever reason, even though, because I have the Eero router system, and when you test it through Eero, everything looks good. Speeds are just fine. I've reset all the different router units. I have 4 different Eero router units in the house, one being right here. And I'm already starting to see some drop frames again. I've been seeing my upload speeds drop down to like the 20 megabits or lower. And I'm not sure what's going on. So we're just going to have to power through it because this is the third time I've tried it. And I am recording this separately. So if I have to, after the fact, upload this separately, that's what we will do. But, and real quick, if you're into things like podcasting and photography, video creation, FPV, live streaming, all that kind of stuff, be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you happen to be watching or listening, and follow me on social media at Ryan Hafey on Instagram and Twitter. We can have a conversation over there when this is all said and done. I'm also live currently on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a new app that's now it's making a lot of waves lately. It's growing in popularity. It is an audio only app, and while I've only been in it for about a week, the concept is essentially you start a room and you can have multiple hosts, and other people can join your room and listen to what you have to say. They can raise their hand and join the conversation and ask questions. So I've been kind of listening to some of these rooms, and there's been some interesting conversations being had over the past, week that I've been playing around on it. I still don't know everything about it, but I figured that I would try doing double duty with this episode and start a room dedicated to live stream podcasting. Now, right now, the room is up and running. I'm talking. I've got it connected here on the Roadcaster, so if anyone enters the room and they want to ask a question, they can do so. Right now, I don't have anyone in the room, and I have no idea if anyone's going to enter. I don't know what the process is like as far as getting other people to talk, but we're just going to let it run, and we're going to talk and do what we normally do here and go through our usual episode structure. And if someone happens to chime in, that would be awesome. We can have a conversation with them. Okay, knock on wood. We jumped up a little bit and dropped frames to 231, but that's been holding steady for a while, so I think we're doing okay. All right. Well, since there's no one in the Clubhouse room at the moment, we're going to go through and do some updates, and there's not a whole lot to update on this week. I will say I have not yet received my DJI remote control back yet. It is being fixed. It is being repaired for free. It was something about some sort of friction piece that was causing the throttle stick to default back to center. Very long story. Well, not long story, but just to very quickly recap. I was flying the drone. I have the DJI FPV goggle system, and at a certain point, it instead of being able to move the throttle stick to where you want it to, and it would stay there, it was defaulting back to center, and that's not expected behavior. So DJI said you got to send it back in, which I did, and they're in the process of fixing it. By the way, I have some lovely lemon tea, lightly carbonated with the Soda Stream today as my beverage. Oh, there go more drop frames. I don't like that. We're falling again. Oh, this is obnoxious. Whatever. Sorry about that. Anyway, so what I wanted to do today, I think, of all the different, and it's kind of ironic that today I wanted to talk about live stream podcasting, and I'm having all these issues with live streaming currently. If you want to do a live stream podcast, step number 1, have a good internet connection and a consistent internet connection, which I usually do, but for whatever reason today it doesn't want to behave. And then that's just kind of where we're at. But podcasting is something that I've been most interested in lately. Obviously, this podcast is something that I do weekly. I produce additional podcasts beyond this one, and I've just had a lot of fun trying to figure out, how this whole ecosystem works, being able to figure out how to be creative within it and do things like live stream within it, or I've done things in the past like make a little game show out of the podcast live stream, just little fun, interesting things to kind of make it a little bit more entertaining. So what I wanted to do, just given how involved I am with it now, I think it's a good idea every now and then to kind of go back and get into the basics. I've done episodes in the past about podcasting and, all things involved with podcasting. I've made a couple videos on my main YouTube channel about, all the equipment that you need, all the software you need, how to set it all up, that type of thing. But, and so this is not going to go as in depth as some of those videos. But we're just going to kind of look more with an eagle eye view as to, what's in my setup, what type of services do I use, what type of equipment do I use, and go from there. So I think the best place to start is probably with equipment. Now, actually, let's back up a little bit. There's essentially 3 forms of podcasts that you can have. Obviously, the most common form, which is kind of like the foundation of podcasting, is audio. So you have an audio version. You could incorporate some video, and then you have a video podcast. And then you can do what we're doing here, which is live streaming a podcast. So you incorporate all 3 things: audio, video, and live streaming. If all you want to do is start an audio podcast, which in this day and age, I don't necessarily recommend, because everyone's kind of diversifying their podcasting these days. And, if you want to get the most exposure and the most eyeballs and most listeners and viewers, you typically will want to expand into the video side of things at the very least. But that's not to say that you can't do only audio. That might be your thing, might work out for you, whatever. If that's the case, you can literally host a podcast on something as simple as your phone. Your phone's obviously got a built-in microphone in it. You can go buy these little attachments for your iPhone that kind of will up your audio quality a little bit. I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but it seems relevant to mention it now. The hosting platform that I use for podcasting is called Anchor, and Anchor has built-in tools that allow you to record your podcast right into the app and publish it immediately. And so really, if your idea for your podcast is just going to be you talking, or you and maybe someone else talking in close proximity, Anchor is a good place to do it, and you can do it right from your phone. Other options, if you want to up your quality a little bit, you could do like a USB microphone, like the Blue Yeti is a popular one. I used to use a Samson Meteor mic, I think it's called. There's all sorts of different USB microphone options out there. Just plug them into your computer. You can record directly into your computer using a free software like Audacity. Or if you have a subscription, obviously, the Premiere or the Adobe Creative Suite, so Adobe Audition, up to you. And then there's obviously this option here, which is to go with some kind of XLR microphone. XLR refers to the connector right here. This is an XLR cable, and that would have to be routed into an audio interface, which I don't know if it's going to show here. You can kind of see the corner of it, but this is my Rodecaster Pro. You don't need an audio interface as big or bulky or as expensive as this one. This one runs about $600. Previous to this, I was using a little two-channel Behringer audio interface that was maybe $150 or less. But you're going to notice an increase in quality with this combination over the other two. So if audio is just your thing, and if quality is your thing, go that route. This microphone here is, I think it's like a $400 or $500 microphone. It's the Shure SM7B. If you don't have that kind of budget, the microphone that I was using previous to this, which I'll actually pull out, is this one here, which is the Audio-Technica AT2035. I use this for a long time. Doesn't sound as good as this one, but it's still not bad at all. And that was like $125, I want to say, give or take. Okay, dropping a little more frames. Okay, we're holding steady now. I'm going to be checking periodically as we go through this. Let's see where we're at. So that's audio. And then, when you're done with your audio, let's see, AT 2020, no board, but no board hooked up. So I got someone in the chat saying they have an AT 2020, but no board hooked up. So I'm curious how you're connecting your AT 2020 or getting that audio into your computer, if you're using maybe some sort of external recorder, or if you've got some kind of connection, a XLR connection going directly into your computer, or maybe an XLR to USB cable, if that even exists. I don't know if it does, but I'd be interested to know. Right into the PC USB. I am a pleb. Okay. I wasn't aware that they had is the AT 2020 that you have a USB version, or are you using some kind of XLR to USB cable? I'd like to know. This is someone commenting on Twitch, by the way. So anyway, we'll go back to them if they chime back in. Let's go into the video side of things. So if you want to start incorporating video, yes, sir. This person says yes, it's a USB version. That's interesting because I did not know that they made a USB version, but that's cool. Very nice. So on the video side of things, there's also a few different ways you can incorporate video into your podcast. The simplest would be, if you've got a laptop that has some kind of built-in webcam, you could do that. Or if you have a USB webcam of some kind, you could go with that as well. Obviously, with a webcam, you're not going to get the kind of high quality that you would expect from a camera like this, which we'll talk about here shortly. But that's going to be the easiest way to do it. And right now, especially, you could probably get away with it a little bit more, especially if you interview people for your podcasts through things like Zoom, because everyone's kind of doing these podcast recordings, through their webcams these days. So it's not uncommon to see people with maybe a little bit lower video quality for the sake of being able to interview people over Zoom, I guess. But I will just talk specifically about the equipment that I use. This camera right here. So I have 3 camera angles. I've got this one, I've got this one up here, and then I've got a GoPro back there, which I use sometimes I don't. This is a Sony a6500. On it, I have a 12 millimeter Rokinon Cine lens, which it's a manual lens, but I actually prefer that just because I can set the focus and then I don't have to worry about it hunting for focus at all. This angle here is a Sony RX100 Mark V. I've had this one for a while. I've just got it connected to this little arm off a shelf. You can kind of see it right here. And then obviously back here being my GoPro. The one thing that all 3 of these cameras have in common is they all have a clean HDMI out, which means you have the option to take the video feed that you see in the camera and pull the clean, it's going to give you just a clean video feed that you can route into your computer. And, now granted, if you're not doing any live streaming stuff, the setup I'm going to mention won't be that applicable to you. But, if you don't have to have a clean HDMI out to do this, if you plan on recording directly from the camera and just hitting record on the camera and you've got your microphone, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But one thing to consider though, if you're not doing any live streaming and you're just going to record directly into camera, is if you are using a separate audio source, you're going to have to sync those up later. That's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is that with a lot of mirrorless and DSLR cameras, they're going to have a 30-minute record limit. So if your podcast does tend to run long, just be mindful of that. You obviously want to consider battery life and things like that. This Sony a6500, the battery life on it is terrible, which is why I typically plug in an external USB power supply, because it can be powered via USB. So I do that whenever possible. But if you want to be able to do things like live produce a podcast and do camera switching and things like that, and maybe record everything, you don't necessarily need to be live streaming, but if you want to record everything live and produce everything live so that when it's done, you have a finished product that you can upload and get out the door, then you will need some additional equipment. So in order to get the camera signal from something like a DSLR, now if you have a USB camera that's going directly into your computer, that's separate. But if you have a mirrorless DSLR or a mirrorless camera or a DSLR that needs to be connected to your computer in some way, you're going to need a capture card of some kind in most cases. A capture card is just basically a little device that goes between your camera and your computer, and allows you the ability to basically this capture card will convert the signal so that your computer can ingest it and that you can record it from there. Or you can use, which is, let's see if I can pull this out without unplugging anything. So this is, it's not going to show me. Oh, here, let me move this. There you go. This is the ATEM Mini switcher board. This is my little live broadcast switcher. This is from Blackmagic. Blackmagic makes a lot of broadcast equipment. They make, the big broadcast boards for some of the bigger productions. This one is specifically designed for live streaming and for, like this type of basically use case that I'm using it for right now. But it's got buttons on here. You can include up to 4 different camera angles. One of these could be an external monitor if you really wanted to. Everything plugs in via HDMI in the back. And then from here, it goes from the units into the computer. So this is going to act like a live switcher and a capture card all in one. So you won't need an additional capture card, because that's one of the things when you, if you plan to have a podcast where you're having multiple camera angles going at the same time, you would need a capture card for each individual camera, unless you were using something like an ATEM that can take in up to multiple inputs. By the way, if you hear some scratching in the background, this is I don't know if you can see him. Kind of. My dog. He's a big boy, but he's over here scratching. Stop scratching. Okay, so the way that my setup works is I've got all 3 of these camera angles plugged into this ATEM Mini. This ATEM Mini is then connected to my computer. And then what I do is I use OBS, and OBS is Open Broadcaster Software. It's free software that you can get online. It's kind of like the gold standard for, small productions and things like that. Like if you want to record and live stream, OBS is great. It's totally free. There is a little bit of a learning curve. I do have a video that you can check out if you want to see all the settings that you need to go through in order to get it up and running. But OBS is what allows me to, here, I'll bring it over here. And what's going to happen is you're going to see this big camera and camera effect. Actually, you know what? You can kind of see it here. So this is OBS on my monitor that you see. And this is the feed. The feed that you see here is what's being brought in from my cameras. If I switch the camera angle, actually that's not going to, well, it doesn't matter because this camera angle is not showing you the thing. So I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. So you have this mirror and mirror effect because right now I'm sharing my screen. But yeah, if I go through and I change the camera angles, because I'm using picture in picture, you can kind of see it on the bottom where it's changing. But through OBS, in this bottom corner here, there's options to stream and there's options to record. So you can be recording a separate high quality version of it while you're also streaming to, in my case, I'm streaming to YouTube. I'm also streaming to via Restream, which is kind of a service that allows you to stream to multiple platforms at the same time. But it allows you to stream to YouTube. In my case, I'm streaming to my Facebook profile, Twitter. There's a paid version where you can stream to a Facebook page and some other platforms as well. Pretty interesting tool. But OBS is where it's at. So if this is where you want to go with your podcast, I definitely recommend checking out OBS and getting that and starting to play around with it and get familiar with it. No more scratching. Tom. Anywho. So yes, cameras. 3 cameras into the ATEM, into the computer. I also have my Rodecaster Pro going into the computer, and all of these things, all of these inputs, the ATEM Mini input, like as you can see, as I'm talking, the waveform is moving here. This is audio that's coming in from the Rodecaster Pro. If I want to play some desktop audio, I can do that as well. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the settings of OBS because that would be an episode in and of itself. But that just gives you an idea there. I also have you're not going to be able to see this very well. But what I'm holding in my left hand here, this is called the Elgato Stream Deck. This is a tool that I really enjoy using for my podcasts. Basically, it's got a lot of customizable buttons. It works very well with OBS as well. So, for example, at the top of the show, when I do my little, hey, be sure to subscribe, I made this little animation and plugged it into the Stream Deck so that whenever I press it, this little animation comes up. You should subscribe, by the way, if you're watching this. So you can do that. You can do things like, again, screen share if you want. You can do a little picture-in-picture type thing. There's all sorts of, there's really no limit to what you can do with this. It doesn't have to be things related directly to OBS. You can put in different, computer commands, shortcuts, and things like that for your web browser, all sorts of different things. So that's a cool little tool. Lighting is another important thing to have if you're going to be having any video type of podcast. Actually, so this is the Godox SL60W, this video light. This is the softbox that you see in this angle here. Let's see. So this is the softbox. The light source is the Godox SL60W. And actually just change this up a little bit. So this softbox, which is a newer in EEWER, it's a 36-inch softbox. It comes with this, kind of nice diffusion layer here. But this softbox actually comes with a second layer of diffusion that initially I didn't have because, obviously the more layers of diffusion you put in there, the less amount of light you're going to get out of it. But in this case, like right now with my arm extended, this is how close the light is to me. Like it's within arm's reach, and that's just a limitation of the space that I have here. But what I was noticing is that even with all this diffusion, because the light source is so close, if I move closer, I was getting some hot spots on my face. So, and I only keep the light at about 40% power anyway. So I went ahead and added in that second layer of diffusion. And now it's even much softer. Like you can see, like as I move my hand close, it starts to clip the highlights a little bit, but it's not quite as harsh as it used to be. It kind of tones it down a little bit. So lighting's always important when it comes to video podcasting. It adds an extra layer of quality. And this is the only light source. I mean, yeah, I have some accent lights here, but this is my only primary light source illuminating me. You could use natural lighting and things of that nature, but natural lighting can change if you've got a bright sunny day versus an overcast day. If clouds are moving over the sun while you're recording, your lighting situation is going to change. That's going to mess with your camera's exposure settings. So it's not always a good time. So if you can control the lighting conditions in your space, that's always the best move. Trying to think if there was anything else that was incredibly important as far as podcasting goes. Let's see. Is there any other software? The only other software that I use OBS, like I mentioned before, and that handles all my streaming and recording. I live stream. I send the live stream to Restream, which is currently pushing out to YouTube, Periscope, aka Twitter, Twitch, and my personal Facebook profile. And let's see. It's kind of it. And then as far as just post-processing, like I mentioned, because I'm live producing with the Ada Mini in kind of combination with the Rodecaster Pro and the Stream Deck here, I can, once this is done, once the episode is done, that's all. Like, that's all I need to do. What I typically do, since I live stream this, once the live stream is ended, it stays on YouTube as if it was just a normally uploaded video. But then what I do is I take the recorded version of the podcast and I bring that into Adobe Audition, where I process the audio. I save that audio separately, and then I upload it directly to Anchor, which is my podcast hosting platform. So let's talk about Anchor a little bit more, actually. Anchor, ANCHOR.FM. Wet the whistle a little bit here. So Anchor is a free podcasting platform or hosting platform. There's a number of them out there. Podbean is one that I've seen that's been popular lately. Libsyn, Libsyn, I believe, is another popular one. That's the one that apparently Joe Rogan uses or maybe used prior to now being on Spotify exclusively. But I like Anchor because it's completely free, and I'm guessing that the reason why it's free is because they have they have a different business model for how they make money. So they offer free tools that allow you to record and incorporate ads into your podcast through their platform. For example, just when you sign up, you have the opportunity to record an ad spot for Anchor, and you'll get a certain, it's like $15 CPM or something. So for every 1,000 listens you get $15. And obviously they'll take their cut of that. But it's an interesting way to learn a little money. But that's why it's free. But the platform itself is super simple. I drag and drop my files into Anchor. It uploads. You add a title, you add a description, a couple more small bits of information, hit publish, and out it goes. I think an episode I should do in the future would be optimizing YouTube for podcasting and kind of like that structure. Because there's like the main podcast channel, and then you see a lot of podcast channels having they'll have a separate clips channel, which I do recommend. If you have a podcast where you can cut it up, and if you can take your longer form content and make smaller pieces of content that you could upload to a separate channel. And there are reasons that you would want to upload it to a separate channel, which, not to get too much into it, it's, if you have a channel where you're uploading all your full episodes, you're going to get subscribers who like that type of content. Maybe they're the type of people who they'll just sit there and they'll open up YouTube and they'll play your podcast or your video just kind of in the background while they're doing some work, or, maybe they just like longer form videos, whatever it may be. You would have a separate clips channel so that you could take some smaller pieces of content. I would say, 4 to 10 minute clips from your longer form podcast, and upload them separately there. And the people that subscribe to that channel are going to be people who would maybe prefer to watch, shorter pieces of content. Maybe they don't have as much time, shorter attention spans, whatever it may be. But what you'll find is that you'll see different audiences on one versus the other, and that's normal. But it gives you the opportunity to connect with people who want to see your content in different forms. But it also gives you ultimately another avenue for monetization. Now you've got a second YouTube channel that, if you're eligible for it, you could monetize with ads or do some separate sponsored content or whatever it may be. So if that's something, if your monetization is one of your goals, there you go. Set up a second channel. And I realize that that's extra time to, it's going to take more time to do all the extra clips and upload and everything like that. But having done it, not so much with this channel, that is one of my shortcomings with this podcast, is I do have a clips channel, but I've done very little with it. But for other podcasts, I have done clips, and it once you do it for a little while, you get into a flow and you kind of figure out a fast way to do it. But I think that about... All right, we're going to do one quick kind of refresher all the way through, and then we'll probably call it quits because I see more dropped frames happening again. Looks like the connection is slowing down. So, all right, I've got my audio, which is a Shure SM7B. This is an XLR microphone. I have that connected directly to my Rodecaster Pro, which is an XLR audio interface. You can also use a USB microphone if you really wanted to. And then this Rodecaster gets plugged directly into the computer. Camera angles, I have personally 3 camera angles. You don't need 3 camera angles, but if you want multiple camera angles, you can have 3 camera angles. And if you're doing it like this, the important thing to remember when you're getting a camera is to make sure that it has the option to do a clean HDMI out, so you can get a clean feed out from the camera into your capture card, or in this case, an Ada Mini, and then into the computer. This Ada Mini, I think, is like $300 or $400. I think $300. Very affordable broadcast board compared to some of the other more professional versions out there. And I will say, if you don't want to go this route, if you do want to do the capture card route, like I mentioned earlier, a capture card, each camera will require its own capture card if you want to do the capture card route. And those capture cards, even like, you know, the Camlink 4K, which is one I was using previous to having the Ada Mini, that's like a little over $100. So I think it's like around 150. So if you have more than 2 cameras, it's literally financially in your benefit just to get something like this Ada Mini. You'll be saving money and you'll have more functionality versus having to buy multiple capture cards. So consider that. And then all of this stuff goes into the computer. Everything gets brought into OBS, which is Open Broadcaster Software, free software, which can live stream, you know, submit or send out your live stream to whichever live stream platform you're using, or it can record at the same time, or you can do each of those separately, so you have a high quality recording of your podcast to use to cut clips with later, all that kind of stuff. Anchor is what I use for podcast hosting for the audio version of the podcast, and everything else, the video version lives on YouTube and is live streamed to other platforms as well. And that's kind of that's the setup. That's what I'm rocking. So we have the Clubhouse room. Looks like I was rocking it solo today, but that's fine because I wanted to just at least figure out how it all works, how to start a room, what happens when you're in there. That was my dog snoring, just so you know. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave Clubhouse since no one's hanging out. But anyway, there you go. Podcasting 101. If you have any additional questions, a couple things to that. If you have specific questions, feel free to shoot me a line. Actually, well, first hit the subscribe button if you're still hanging out with me. And then after that, go follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ryan Hafey, and ask me a question there if you have any specific questions. If you are starting a podcast and you want to do, maybe you have some more questions specific to your project that you're working on, or maybe you just want to pick my brain for a little bit, I am offering hourly consulting via Zoom for $75 for the hour. So if that's something you're interested in, shoot me an email. I should have my email in the description of this video if you're on YouTube, but it's ryan@hafeydigital.com. That's HAFEY digital.com. Shoot me an email. Give me your availability. Let me know a little bit about what you want to talk about, and we'll set up a call, and you can pick my brain for an hour. So yeah, that's that. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this one done. I appreciate you all being with me here today. Thank you for putting up with my internet issues, and keep on creating, making, and doing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.